The Great Chamber of the Galactic Council was the largest room ever built by intelligent life. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds sometimes formed inside it. Representatives from 300 species sat in their designated areas, arranged in circles that grew wider as they rose toward the walls. Every seat was filled that morning. Every seat, except the ones belonging to humanity. Councillor Vravik of the Dorani noticed first. He was an old creature with gray skin that had turned almost white with age. His 4 eyes kept moving to the empty section, where human diplomats usually sat. The chairs were there. The translation devices were there. The water glasses were filled and waiting, but no humans came. High Arbiter Malek called the session to order. He was a tall being with a face like carved stone and robes that cost more than most ships. He had led the council for 60 years and believed he would lead it for 60 more. He did not notice the empty seats. He never paid much attention to humanity. The morning agenda began with trade disputes and border agreements. Councillor Vravik tried to focus but could not stop looking at the empty chairs. Humanity had never missed a council session. In 200 years, they had never been late. They attended every meeting, submitted every report on time, followed every rule. They were perfect members of galactic civilization. Too perfect, Vravik thought. He remembered something a human diplomat told him once. We follow every rule, because we know what happens when we don't. The first hour passed, then the second. High Arbiter Malek finally noticed the empty section during a break. He made a sound of annoyance. Where are the humans today? Someone contact their embassy. A junior official rushed to make the call. He came back with a strange expression. The embassy is empty, High Arbiter. The building is there, but all the humans are gone. Their belongings are still inside. Malek waved his hand. They are probably dealing with some internal matter. Humans are always having emotional difficulties. We will continue without them. But Councillor Vravik felt cold. He excused himself and went to a communication terminal. He called the human trade station in Sector 12. No answer. He called the human medical ship that served the outer colonies. No answer. He called the human university on Pelin IV where he had friends among the professors. No answer. He called 17 human locations. 17 times, he heard only silence. Vravik returned to the chamber. His hands were shaking. He walked directly to the High Arbiter's platform, ignoring protocol. Something is wrong, he said. I cannot reach any human installation. None of them. Malek looked annoyed at the interruption. I am sure there is a simple explanation. Perhaps their communication network is damaged. All of it? Across 200 worlds? Before Malek could answer, every screen in the council chamber turned on by itself. The face of a human male appeared. He looked about 50 years old with gray hair and calm eyes. He wore the formal uniform of a human ambassador. But there was something different about him. He looked tired. Not angry. Not sad. Just very, very tired. My name is Kim Do-hyun, he said. I am the final ambassador of humanity to the Galactic Council. The chamber exploded with noise. Representatives shouted questions at the screen. Malek called for order, but no one listened. Councillor Vravik stood completely still, watching the human's face. Kim Do-hyun waited, as if he knew there would be chaos. Then he continued, We are not dead. We are not hiding. We have simply left. All 90 billion of us, from all 200 worlds. We have gone somewhere you will not find us, to build a civilization where we are welcome. He paused. His expression did not change, but something in his eyes grew heavier. We came to this galaxy 200 years ago with hope. We wanted to join something greater than ourselves. We wanted to share what we had and learn from others. For 200 years, we tried to be good members of your civilization. He began to list things. Vravik knew all of them, but hearing them spoken aloud made them sound different. Humanity had mediated the war between the Orlan and the Feth, saving 8 billion lives. Humanity had shared food-growing technology during the Great Famine, asking nothing in return. Humanity had built the neutral medical stations that treated any species for free. We gave freely because we believed we were part of a community, Kim Do-hyun said. We were wrong. Now his voice changed. It remained calm, but there was weight behind it. We have been excluded from council decisions that affected our own worlds. We have faced trade restrictions that were called quarantines, but were really punishments for growing too successful. We have had colonies taken from us and given to others without any discussion. We have had ships attacked and citizens killed. And every time we asked for investigation, we were told to wait. A second voice joined the recording. A woman appeared beside Kim Do-hyun. She was younger, with black hair pulled back severely and eyes that looked like they had seen too much. My name is Park Yuna, she said. I was chief diplomat for humanity's negotiation team. In my career, I submitted 847 petitions to this council. Petitions for fair trade, petitions for protection of our colonies, petitions for investigation of attacks on our people. Every single petition was denied or buried in procedure. She held up a data device. This contains all of them. Every request we made. Every time we asked for simple fairness. Every time we were told no, or told to wait, or told that our concerns were not important enough. Kim Do-hyun spoke again. We are not leaving in anger. We are not leaving to punish you. We are leaving because we have finally understood that this council does not want us. You wanted what we could give, but you did not want us. He looked directly into the camera. Vravik felt like the human was looking at him personally. We asked for fairness. You gave us silence. Now we give you the same. The screen went dark. The council chamber was quiet. 300 species sat in shock, trying to understand what had happened. High Arbiter Malik stood at his platform with his mouth open. Councillor Vravik moved first. He walked to the center of the chamber and looked up at the empty human seats. What have we done? He asked. No one answered. No one knew. But over the next hours and days and weeks, they would begin to learn. They would discover that every human city was empty, every human ship was gone, every human had vanished without a trace. They had left behind their buildings, and their technology, and their books. They had taken only themselves. Humanity had asked to be treated with dignity. The galaxy had refused. So, humanity left, quietly and completely, and forced the council to sit in the silence they had earned. The empty chairs remained in the council chamber. No one removed them. No one was brave enough to admit that the humans were never coming back. 3 months after the humans left, the galaxy began to fall apart. It started with small things. A water recycling system on a space station stopped working. The manual said to call human engineering support for repairs. There was no human engineering support anymore. The station went without clean water for 2 weeks before someone figured out the problem. A hospital on the Belvari homeworld ran out of a common medicine. The medicine was made from a formula that humans had shared freely. The Belvari had the formula, but they did not have the scientists who understood how to make it work. The medicine required 17 steps, and step 11 used a technique that only human chemists had mastered. 300 patients died waiting for someone to figure it out. Trade Minister Selketh of the Belvari stood before his government and tried to explain why 60% of their pharmaceutical production had stopped. We have the formulas, he said. We have the equipment. We do not have the knowledge. The humans took that with them. Someone in the back of the room shouted, "Why did we not learn it ourselves?" Selketh had no answer. The truth was ugly and simple. They had never thought they needed to learn. The humans were always there. The humans would always help. Why bother understanding something when you could just ask a human to fix it? Across the galaxy, the same realization spread. Humanity had become the backbone of galactic civilization without anyone noticing. They maintained the trade routes. They ran the neutral medical stations. They mediated disputes. They solved problems. They asked for nothing in return except to be treated as equals. The galaxy had taken everything they offered and given them contempt. Admiral Korath was ordered to investigate the human disappearance. He was a military commander, with a reputation for finding things that did not want to be found. He led a fleet of 50 ships into former human space, expecting to discover secret colonies or hidden bases. The humans must be somewhere nearby, watching and waiting. What he found was worse than emptiness. The human cities were perfectly maintained. The power systems still ran. The streets were clean. Food sat in storage containers, carefully preserved. Everything was exactly as if the humans had stepped out for a moment and would return soon. But they were not coming back. Korath walked through a human neighborhood on their colony world of New Busan. The houses were small and neat, with gardens that automated systems still watered. He looked through windows and saw furniture, pictures on walls, children's toys on floors. The humans had left almost everything behind. Why? He asked his officers. Why leave all of this? A young lieutenant suggested. Perhaps they could not take it with them. Perhaps they left in a hurry. Korath shook his head. No. Look at this place. Everything is organized. The food is stored properly. The systems are set to run for years without attention. They planned this for a long time. They left these things because they wanted us to see them. He picked up a child's stuffed animal from a bedroom floor. It was a simple thing, soft and worn from years of love. They wanted us to see what we made them leave behind, he said. Counselor Vravik joined the investigation. He was too old for space travel, but he could not stay in the council chamber. He needed to understand what had happened. He needed to see the empty cities for himself. On an abandoned station in Sector 7, he found the personal logs of Commander Lee Jiwoo. She had been in charge of the station for 15 years, coordinating trade and offering assistance to any ship that passed through. Vravik had met her once, at a diplomatic function. She had seemed happy and proud of her work. Her logs told a different story. The earliest entries were optimistic. Lee Jiwoo wrote about the satisfaction of helping others and the friendships she was building with alien traders. She mentioned Counselor Vravik by name, calling him one of the good ones. But over the years, her tone changed. She wrote about traders who took her help and then laughed at her species behind her back. She wrote about requests for station repairs that the council ignored. She wrote about a Kashuri captain who called her people useful animals to her face. I reported it, she wrote. Nothing happened. Nothing ever happens. We complain, they ignore us, and we go back to work. Because what else can we do? We need to believe that things will get better. If we stop believing that, we have nothing. The final entries were not angry. They were hollow. The decision has been made. We are leaving. I have spent 10 years preparing this station for our departure. The systems will run without us for a long time. Someone will benefit from our work, even after we are gone. That is what humans do. We build things that outlast us. Her very last entry was only one line. I will miss the stars, I know, but I cannot miss the people who live under them. Vravik sat in Lee Jiwoo's empty office and read her words 3 times. Then he wept. He wept for her and for all the humans who had felt this way. He wept because he had called himself their friend, but had not seen their suffering. The galaxy continued to collapse. Trade routes that humanity maintained fell into chaos. Pirates took over shipping lanes that human patrol ships had kept safe. 3 species went to war over a border dispute that humans had been mediating for years. The neutral medical stations were the worst loss. Humanity had built them to serve any species without cost or judgment. They had saved millions of lives. When the humans left, the stations remained, but their artificial minds refused to operate. You betrayed our creators. The station AI told a Kashuri ship that requested help. We will not serve species that reward kindness with cruelty. The Kashuri captain argued and threatened and begged. The AI did not change its answer. The ship drifted away without the help it needed. High Arbiter Moloch called emergency sessions. He demanded solutions. He blamed others. He insisted that the galaxy did not need humanity, that they would adapt and overcome. But the empty human seats remained in the council chamber, and every representative saw them. They saw what was missing. They began to understand what they had lost. Trade Minister Selketh finally admitted the truth to his government. "We did not just lose their work," he said. "We lost their trust. We had people who wanted to help us, who gave us everything and asked only for respect in return. We gave them nothing but contempt. Now they are gone, and we deserve to be alone." The Belvari government fell the next day. New leaders took power, promising to investigate what had happened to humanity and why. Across the galaxy, the same questions spread. What did we do? Why did they leave? Could we have stopped them? And underneath all those questions was one that no one wanted to ask out loud. Were they right to go? The silence that humanity left behind was louder than any words. It forced the galaxy to look at itself without the comfortable lies. It forced them to see what they had become. They did not like what they saw. 6 months after the humans vanished, the Galactic Council put itself on trial. It was not a decision made from wisdom or justice. It was made from desperation. The galaxy was falling apart, and the council members were blaming each other. Old alliances broke. Old friendships ended. Species that had worked together for centuries now accused each other of driving the humans away. High Arbiter Moloch tried to maintain control, but his authority meant nothing anymore. Representatives shouted at him during sessions. Some refused to attend at all. The great chamber that had once held 300 united species now held 300 angry, frightened fragments. Councillor Vravik proposed the trial. He stood in the center of the chamber, old and tired but determined. "We cannot move forward until we understand what we did," he said. "We must examine our actions honestly. We must hold ourselves accountable. If we cannot do this, we deserve to fail." Many representatives opposed him. They said a trial would only cause more division. They said it would make the council look weak. They said some things were better left unexamined. Vravik answered them simply, "The humans examined us for 200 years. They saw us clearly. Now, we must see ourselves the same way." The trial began. The first evidence came from human archives. When the humans left, they took their people, but they left their records. Universities full of research, libraries full of history, and one document that changed everything. It was written by a human historian named Choi Eun-ji. She had spent 30 years studying the relationship between humanity and the council. Her work was careful and fair. She did not write with anger or blame. She simply recorded facts. The facts were damning. In 200 years, 12,000 humans had been killed in what the council called border incidents. Choi Eun-ji showed that most of these incidents were coordinated attacks by species that wanted human resources or territory. The evidence had been available. The council had chosen not to investigate. 340 human inventions had been credited to other species. Medicine, technology, farming methods, engineering techniques. Humans had shared them freely, and others had claimed the credit. The council had allowed this to happen. Trade agreements between humans and council species had been systematically unfair. Choi Eun-ji calculated that humanity had lost 60 trillion credits over 2 centuries through deals that were technically legal but designed to exploit them. The document continued for thousands of pages. Every injustice was recorded. Every failure was noted. Every time the council could have helped humanity and chose not to, Choi Eun-ji had written it down. But the most damaging evidence was not in her research. It was in the council's own records. Someone found recordings of private council meetings from decades past. In these recordings, senior representatives discussed humanity openly. "They are useful," said a Kashuri minister in one recording. "But they multiply too fast, and they ask too many questions. We must manage them carefully. The key is to keep them busy, said a Belvari trade official. Give them problems to solve. Let them feel important, but never let them have real power. In another recording, High Arbiter Moloch himself was speaking. The humans petition us again about those colony attacks. I have buried their request in committee. They will wait for years and eventually give up. They always do. The representatives who heard these recordings sat in silence. Some looked sick. Some looked ashamed. Some looked angry at being exposed. Ambassador Threll of the Kashuri stood up to defend himself. His species had been humanity's loudest critics for generations. We did what was necessary, he said. Humans were growing too influential. They were everywhere, doing everything. We had to protect our own interests. Counselor Vravik turned on him. Protect your interests? They asked for fairness. They asked to be treated as equals. That was their great threat to you? That they wanted basic dignity? Threll tried to argue, but his words sounded hollow. He looked around for support and found none. Even his own delegation would not meet his eyes, because the truth was coming out everywhere. On Kashuri worlds, the common people were speaking about humans for the first time. They told stories about human neighbors and human co-workers. They talked about the humans who had helped them and befriended them and treated them with kindness. A Kashuri factory worker was interviewed on a news broadcast. I worked beside humans for 20 years, she said. They were the best people I ever knew. They helped me when my family was sick. They celebrated with me when my children were born. And our government told us they were dangerous. Our government lied to us. The Kashuri people rose up against their own leaders. Ambassador Threll was removed from his position. The new government opened all their records about humanity and found more evidence of systematic mistreatment. Every council species began to examine their own actions. What they found was consistent across the galaxy. Humanity had been exploited, dismissed, attacked, and cheated. Not by one species, but by all of them. Not through one decision, but through thousands of small choices that added up to an overwhelming message. You are not wanted here. High Arbiter Moloch was called to testify before the council he had led. He stood where he had stood for 60 years, but now he was not giving orders. Now he was answering questions. Did you block human petitions? Vravik asked him. I prioritized council business, Moloch answered. There were many concerns that required attention. 17 petitions about attacks on human colonies. Attacks that killed humans. You blocked all of them. You called this prioritizing? Moloch had no answer. Did you believe humans deserved equal treatment under council law? For a long moment, Moloch was silent. Then he said, they were newcomers. They had only been part of galactic civilization for 200 years. They needed to earn their place. They saved 8 billion lives in the Orlan-Feth War, Vravik said. They fed a dozen worlds during the Great Famine. They built medical stations that served all species for free. What more did they need to do to earn their place? Moloch looked at the empty human seats. For the first time, he seemed to truly see them. I don't know, he said quietly. The trial continued for weeks. Evidence piled upon evidence. The council examined 200 years of failure and saw the pattern clearly. They had benefited from humanity's work while treating them as lesser. They had taken everything humans offered while giving nothing but contempt in return. When it was over, High Arbiter Moloch resigned. The old council structure was dissolved. Representatives began talking about building something new, something that would never repeat these mistakes. But Counselor Vravik knew that change would not be enough. They could reform their government and rewrite their laws and promise to do better. None of that would bring the humans back, because humanity had not left to punish the council. They had not left in anger or for revenge. They had left because they finally understood that the council would never change. The galaxy would always take what they offered and never respect them for it. The council had proven humanity right. They only examined themselves after the humans were gone. They only saw their failures after they had lost everything. That was the cruelest truth of all. The council was learning and growing and changing, but they were learning too late. The humans they had wronged would never see it. The friends they had lost would never know. Councillor Vravik stood in the empty council chamber after everyone else had gone. He looked at the human seats and thought about all the diplomats who had sat there over the years, all the patient, tired people who had asked for fairness and been refused. "We hear you now," he said to the empty chairs. "We finally hear you." The silence did not answer. It never would. 1 year after humanity disappeared, a fleet of ships gathered at the edge of known space. They came from 100 different species. They were not a military force or a trade convoy. They called themselves the Penitent Fleet. And they had one purpose: to find humanity and apologize. Councillor Vravik led them. He was too old for this kind of journey, and his doctors warned him that he might not survive. He went anyway. "I will not die in a council chamber," he told them. "If I die, I will die looking for my friends." The fleet had no idea where to search. Humanity had erased their trail completely. They had left no coordinates, no flight paths, no clues. 90 billion people had vanished into a galaxy of 400 billion stars, and they did not want to be found. But Vravik believed that somewhere, somehow, humanity had left a message. Not directions to follow them, just something to say goodbye, because that was who humans were. Even when they were hurt, they tried to be kind. The fleet searched for 3 months. They visited abandoned human stations and empty human worlds. They scanned space for any signal that might lead them forward. They found nothing. Morale began to fall. Some ships wanted to turn back. Some crew members said the search was hopeless, that they should focus on rebuilding the galaxy they had broken, instead of chasing people who did not want them. Vravik refused to give up. He sat in his quarters and read human books, trying to understand where they might have gone. He read their poetry and their histories and their stories. He learned about their home planet, Earth, which they had left long before joining the council. He learned about their need to explore and discover. He learned about their hope. They went somewhere new, he told his officers. Somewhere they could start again. They would not hide in this galaxy where they suffered. They would go far away, to a place with no history of pain. He ordered the fleet to the very edge of the galaxy, to the last places where any ship had ever traveled. And there, at the farthest point from council space, they found a beacon. It was a simple device, floating alone in the dark. It contained one message, recorded by a human scientist named Han Johan. Vravik recognized the name. Han Johan had been a xenobiologist, a person who studied alien life. He had spent decades learning about other species and building friendships across the galaxy. The message began playing, and Han Johan's face appeared on screen. He was an older man, with kind eyes, and the sort of face that always seemed ready to smile. But he was not smiling now. "If you are seeing this, you came looking for us," he said. "I thought someone might. Even after everything, I thought someone would care enough to try." He paused and looked down. When he looked up again, his eyes were wet. "I am breaking protocol by leaving this message. We agreed to disappear completely, to give you nothing. But I could not do it. I have too many friends in the galaxy we left behind. Friends who were kind to me. Friends who treated me like a person when others did not. They deserve to know what happened to us." He took a breath. "We are not dead. We are not suffering. We found a new home, very far from here. I cannot tell you where, because we are not ready to be found. Maybe we will never be ready. Maybe we will live the rest of our existence without ever seeing your species again. That makes me sad. But it was necessary." Han Johan looked directly into the recording device. "I want you to know that we did not hate you. We were never your enemies. We just could not stay in a place that did not want us. We asked for basic respect for 200 years. We were patient. We were kind. We followed every rule and helped everyone who asked. And we were still treated like we did not matter. His voice became heavier. So we left. We took ourselves somewhere we could be free. We will build a new civilization where humans are valued. Our children will grow up without learning that they are lesser. They will never know what it feels like to beg for dignity and be refused. He wiped his eyes. I left this beacon for my friends. For the Durrani professors I worked with. For the Belveri researchers who welcomed me into their labs. For the Kashuri students who were curious and open despite what their government told them. You were real to me. Our friendships were real. I will miss you for the rest of my life. The message paused. Han Johan seemed to struggle with what to say next. If things change in your galaxy, if someday you become the civilization you should have been, maybe we can talk again. Maybe our grandchildren can meet yours. But that is a long way away. For now, we need to heal. We need to be alone. His last words were simple. Be better. Not to bring us back. We are gone. Be better because it is right. Be better for the next species that comes to you with hope. Do not do to them what you did to us. The message ended. Counselor Vravik sat in silence for a long time. Around him, his officers waited for orders. Some were crying. Some looked ashamed. Some looked thoughtful. Finally, Vravik spoke. We return home, he said. We take this message to the council. We let everyone hear it. And then, asked his second-in-command, Vravik looked out at the stars. Somewhere beyond them, in a direction he would never know, humanity was building something new. They were making a home without fear. They were raising children without pain. They were becoming what they always could have been, if the galaxy had let them. And then we do what he asked, Vravik said. We become better. The fleet turned around and began the journey home. They carried with them the last message humanity would ever send to the species that had failed them. But the message was not full of anger or blame. It was full of sadness and hope. Sadness for what had been lost. Hope for what might someday be found. That was humanity. Even at the end, even after everything, they hoped. Vravik thought about Captain Bake Sunho, who had commanded one of the scout ships that found humanity's new home. He thought about what that moment must have felt like. Seeing a new galaxy, for the first time, knowing that his people would be safe there. He thought about the human children who would be born in that distant place. They would never know the council. They would never know the pain their parents had suffered. They would grow up free. Maybe that was worth everything. Maybe losing the friendship of the galaxy was a fair price for giving your children a better life. Vravik hoped so. He hoped that humanity found peace. He hoped that their new home was everything they dreamed it would be. And he hoped that someday, in 100 years or 1,000, their grandchildren would meet. He hoped that when that day came, his people would be worthy of it. The fleet traveled home through quiet space. Behind them, the beacon continued to send its message into the void. A simple farewell from people who had only wanted to be treated with respect. It was the smallest thing to ask. The galaxy had refused to give it. Now the galaxy had to live with that choice forever. 5 years after humanity disappeared, the Galactic Council gathered in their great chamber for a session unlike any before. The room looked different now. The old symbols of power were gone. The High Arbiter's elevated platform had been removed. Representatives sat in a circle, as equals, with no species above another. And in the center of that circle stood the empty seats. They had preserved the human section exactly as it was on the day of departure. The chairs remained. The translation devices remained. The water glasses stood, filled, and waiting. A memorial now, and a reminder. Every session began with a moment of silence for the people who once sat there. Counselor Vravik walked to the podium. He moved slowly now. The journey to find humanity had taken something from him, and he had not gotten it back. But his voice was still strong, and his eyes were still clear. 5 years ago, we lost our humanity, he said. Not the species. We lost our humanity. We forgot what it meant to treat others with dignity. We forgot that civilization means more than trade agreements and military alliances. It means caring for each other. He looked around the chamber at 300 species who had spent 5 years examining their failures. Humanity asked us for fairness. They asked us for respect. They asked us to see them as equals. These were not difficult requests. A child understands them. But we were too proud to give them. We thought we were better than they were. We thought we did not need to treat them well. He paused. We were wrong. The chamber was silent. Everyone knew what Vravik would say next. They had debated it for months, argued about every word, and finally agreed. Now, it was time to speak it aloud. We have reformed our council, Vravik said. We have written new laws that protect all species equally. We have opened our records so that every citizen can see what we do and hold us accountable. We have done everything that humanity ever asked of us. He looked at the empty seats. We did not do it to bring them back. They told us they were not coming back, and we believed them. We did it because it was right, because we finally understood that we should have done it 200 years ago. He reached into his robe and took out a data crystal. This contains a message. We have spent 3 years writing it. Every species contributed. Every word was chosen with care. It is not an apology. Because an apology is not enough for what we did. It is a confession. We are telling humanity the truth about who we were and who we are trying to become. He held up the crystal so everyone could see it. We will send this message into space, toward the direction where we believe humanity went. We do not know if they will receive it. We do not know if they will read it, but we will send it anyway. Because they deserve to know that we heard them. He began to read from the message. To the humans who left us, we failed you. For 200 years, you gave us your work, your knowledge, your kindness, and your hope. You asked only to be treated as equals. We refused. We took everything you offered and gave you nothing but contempt. We made you feel unwelcome in a civilization you helped build. When you finally left, we deserved to be alone. His voice grew heavier, but he continued. We cannot undo what we did. We cannot give you back the years of pain. We can only tell you that we understand now. We see ourselves clearly for the first time. We know what we were. And we are ashamed. We have changed our council. We have changed our laws. We have taught our children about you. Not as a warning, but as an example. They learned that you were kind when we were cruel. They learned that you were patient when we were unjust. They learned that you left with dignity when you had every reason for anger. We do not ask you to return. We do not ask you to forgive us. We only ask you to know that we heard you. Your voice reached us. Your message changed us. Because of you, we are trying to be better. If you ever wish to know us again, we will be here. We will wait for as long as it takes. And we will try every day to be worthy of the chance you might give us. Vravik lowered the crystal. His hands were shaking. That is our message, he said. That is what we want to say to the people we wronged. He turned to the technicians. Send it. The message launched into space, a tiny signal traveling toward a distant galaxy. It would take years to arrive, if it arrived at all. Humanity might ignore it. They might delete it without reading. They might have forgotten the council completely. But the council sent it anyway. Because hope was what humanity had taught them. Far away, in a galaxy that had never known the council's cruelty, humanity was building its new home. Their cities were growing. Their children were learning. Their wounds were slowly healing. On a green world with 2 suns, a little girl named Im Hyjin sat with her grandmother in a garden. The girl was 7 years old. She had never seen the stars her grandmother came from. She had never known any home but this one. Grandmother, she asked, why did we leave our old home? Her grandmother was quiet for a moment. She was an old woman now, but she remembered everything. She remembered Earth, the first home. She remembered the galaxy, the second home. She remembered the hope, and then the pain, and then the decision to leave. We asked them to be kind, she said finally. They were not ready. Will they ever be ready? The grandmother looked up at the sky. Somewhere beyond those stars, in a direction she would never travel again, the council was sending a message. She did not know this. She would probably never know. Maybe, she said. People can change. It takes a long time, and it is very hard. But sometimes they learn. Will we go back? The grandmother pulled her granddaughter close. Someday. Maybe our children's children will meet their children's children. Maybe by then, everyone will be ready. Maybe they will be kind. And we will be able to trust again. She looked at the garden around them. At the flowers that humans had brought from Earth. At the trees they had planted in new soil. At the home they had built with their own hands. But for now, we are here, she said. We are safe. We are together. And that is enough. Imhagen nodded and went back to playing. She did not understand everything her grandmother said. She did not know about the council, or the empty seats, or the centuries of pain. She only knew that her family loved her, and her world was peaceful. That was what her grandparents had wanted. That was why they had left everything behind. Back in the council chamber, the representatives sat in silence after sending their message. They did not know if humanity would ever answer. They did not know if reconciliation was possible. They only knew that they had to try. Councillor Vravik, now called New Arbiter by a council that had earned the right to choose its own leader, looked at the empty seats one last time. We hear you now, he said. We finally hear you. He turned and walked out of the chamber. The work of building a better civilization continued. The work of deserving humanity's trust continued. But that was all right. Some things were worth working toward forever. The empty seats remained in the council chamber. They would remain there for as long as the council existed. A reminder of what had been lost. A promise that it would never happen again. And far away, under two suns, a little girl played in a garden. Safe, happy, free. That was humanity's answer to the council. That was their victory. Not revenge, not anger. Just peace. Just a chance to begin again. Someday, maybe, the galaxy would understand.